Welcome, and thank you for joining the Interpreting the Final Validation Report training module. The goal of this training is to explain in detail the information contained in the system-generated Final Validation Report. This report contains feedback on the HIS records submitted to the KEYS ASAP system. If you've not yet viewed training modules 1 through 5, you should do so before viewing this training module. Module 5 demonstrated how to retrieve the system-generated Hospice Final Validation Report in the CASPER reporting system. The focus of this training module will be to examine the report itself, including the information on the report and an example of a fatal and warning message that may appear on the report. The report review will be divided into two sections, the header section and the record or body section. Note that this report contains privacy-protected data and should not be released to the public. This is the Hospice Final Validation Report. The Final Validation Report header contains the following information: CMS Submission Report and Hospice Final Validation Report are the title and subtitle of the report. The next section contains the following submission information: submission date and time is the date and time that the submission file was received by the KEYS ASAP system. Submission ID is the unique identifier assigned to the submission file when it is received by the KEYS ASAP system. Submitter user ID is the KEYS user ID of the individual submitting the file. Submission file name is the name of the submission file with this submission ID. Submission file status is the processing status of the submission file listed on the report. Completed is the only status that will display on the Final Validation Report. Processing completion date and time is the date and time the records in the submission file were processed by the KEYS ASAP system. The next section contains the following provider information: FAC ID, or Facility ID, is the CMS-assigned unique identifier that must be entered into your software for HIS file submissions. This is used for identifying submissions from your provider. You will receive this identifier when registering for your KEYS user ID. Provider name is the name of the provider who created the HIS record. Provider CCN is the provider's CMS certification number. State code is the provider's 2-character state code. The final header section contains the record counts for the submission file. Number of records processed is the total number of records in the submission file that were successfully processed by the KEYS ASAP system. Number of records accepted is the total number of records in the submission file that passed the KEYS ASAP system edits and were saved into the KEYS National Database. Only records without fatal errors are saved to the database. Number of records rejected is the total number of records in the submission file that contained fatal errors and were not saved to the database. If a record is rejected by the KEYS ASAP system, the error must be corrected in the Hospice data entry software and the record resubmitted to the KEYS ASAP system. Number of duplicate records is the total number of records that were rejected by the KEYS ASAP system because they already exist in the KEYS National Database. Duplicate record errors can occur when the same submission file is submitted to the KEYS ASAP system more than once, or a record is included in more than one submission file and submitted to the KEYS ASAP system. To prevent duplicate record errors, ensure that a file for a previously accepted record is not repeatedly submitted to the KEYS ASAP system. Number of records submitted without facility authority is the total number of records that were submitted by the user who did not have authority to submit data for the facility ID in the HIS record. Total number of messages is the total number of error messages for all records processed in the submission file. The following fields display for each record successfully processed by the KEYS ASAP system. The first section is the record processing order and record processing status. The record processing order identifies the order that the record was processed by the KEYS ASAP system. This number may not coincide with the record order in the file you submitted, because the KEYS ASAP system orders the records prior to processing to ensure the records are processed in the order that the event occurred. Record processing status indicates whether the record was accepted, that is, it contained no fatal errors and was stored in the national database, or rejected, as the record did not pass the KEYS ASAP editing system. The next section is the patient information section. Name is the name of the patient displayed in the last name, first name format. This information is taken from items A0500A and A0500C. Birth date is the birth date of the patient. This information is taken from item A0900. SSN is the patient's Social Security number. This information is taken from item A0600A. Gender is the gender of the patient. This information is taken from item A0800. Another item used to identify the patient is the patient ID. This is a unique number assigned to the patient by the KEYS ASAP system. The final section is the record details and detailed message information section. Target date is the date that defines when the event occurred for the patient. For admission records, the target date is the admission date, item A0220, and the discharge date, item A0270, for discharge records. The type of record value is taken from item A0050 and identifies whether the record is a new record, a modification to a previously accepted record, or an inactivation record. HIS ID is the unique number assigned to the record by the ASAP system. The reason for record value is taken from item A0250 and identifies the reason for the record. The hospice reason for records are admission record and discharge record. The XML file name is the name of the XML file containing the HIS record. Beneath the XML file name is a section containing the error message information. If the record was accepted without errors, no error message information will display. It is important to read the information in this section from left to right. The field titles are listed on the left, and to right is the corresponding data. The HIS items contains the HIS item identifiers for the items to which the error message applies. If more than one item applies to the error message, all item identifiers will display. The Data Submitted field contains the data submitted in the HIS record that resulted in the error message. The message number and severity contains the error number, followed by the severity of the error, fatal, or warning. Message contains the error message description for the error message number. There are two types of error messages that may display on the final validation report: warning and fatal. If no errors resulted from file processing, neither warning nor fatal messages will display on the report. If the record contains only warning messages, the record will be accepted by the Keys ASAP system. You should evaluate the message to determine if the error needs to be addressed. If the record contains one or more fatal errors, it is rejected and not accepted by the Keys ASAP system. The fatal errors must be corrected, and the record must be resubmitted to the Keys ASAP system. It is possible for a record to contain one or more warning messages in conjunction with one or more fatal errors. If this occurs, the fatal errors will take precedence, and the record is rejected. Here's an example of a warning message and a fatal error. A complete list of all possible hospice error messages, fatal and warning, can be found in Section 5 of the Hospice Submissions User's Guide. The first message is related to error 3032A, which is a fatal error. The hospice items in error were A0900, A0220, A0245, A0270, Z0500B, and submission date. The data submitted in the birth date field was July 2nd, 2014, and the data submitted in items A0220, A0245, and A0270 was July 1st, 2014. It is not possible that these dates be earlier than the birth date, therefore error 3032A occurred. The message number and severity is error message number 3032A, and it is a fatal error. The message description is inconsistent dates. The dates listed are inconsistent. The incorrect date should be corrected in the hospice data entry software, and the records should be resubmitted. The second message is related to error 3021, which is a warning message. The hospice items in error was item A0100B, provider CCN. The submitted value in A0100B was compared to the stored CCN value in the national database. The submitted data value, 101530, displays first, followed by the CCN in the national database for this provider, 251508. The message number and severity is message number 3021, and it is a warning. The message description is incorrect CCN. A0100B does not match the CMS certification number, or CCN, in the KEYS ASAP system database for the provider identified in the file. To prevent this error in the future, correct the value in item A0100B CCN in the hospice data entry software when encoding the record data. For more information on the final validation report and the potential error messages that may appear on this report, please refer to the Hospice Item Set Submission User's Guide. Should you require assistance with interpreting the Hospice Final Validation Report, contact the KEYS Technical Support Office Help Desk by phone at 877-201-4721